Friday afternoon. Three men were seated around a newly dug borewell in Ramagondanahalli, a suburb in Bengaluru. They were running a motor to pump water out of the well into their homes, but were discussing why very little water seemed to be flowing out. Have you heard of such a situation in the Silicon Valley, in one of the major hubs of technology, that is Bengaluru? So, if current practices do not improve significantly, the city will be faced with day zero before long, according to the World Resources Institute of India. And it's not just about Bengaluru. Many such cities in and around, and not only in Karnataka, in adjacent areas in Telangana, as well as Maharashtra, these situations have become commonplace. And even there is a meme doing the rounds, that the best place to exercise work from home is Bengaluru these days, because during monsoon it floods, so it is difficult to go to the office. And during the drought season, or not exactly drought season, now since the aquifers are drying up, so right now also, since there is no water, so there's no use of going to the home also, going to the office also. So ultimately the meme is not what we are going to focus on. We are going to focus on the important aspects, and I'm not just talking about the aspects from the point of view of UPSC. This is a general trend. I'm not just going to cover the climate change aspect, I'm going to tell you what really matters. So you might find that I'm just speaking, or just going to plunder or burden you, overwhelm you with information, but that is not the way I teach, and I'm going to make it a little bit of fun. So for that, what we'll do is that we are going to start with some diagrams, that is the maps. Mapping is most important, one of the most important components when it comes to UPSC, and even to the layman. When we draw diagrams or maps, it helps him or her to imagine or insinuate what is going to happen next. And of course, this is one topic which can be asked not only in the mains, it can be used as a case study in GS paper 1, GS paper 3, even in optionals as an example in essay, but also many things. Why I'm talking about maps? Because the prelims part, the unpredictable public service commission, the prelims, we are going to discuss some locations reverse, which are going to be very important. So I'll just try to draw a rough diagram. I'll make it as quickly as possible. So this is the happy hour place, that is Goa. Just some of my lame jokes, but the major part is this, which we are going to focus on. So by the shapes you might have started recognizing some of the states. This is the western coast, the eastern coast, and then we have Andhra Pradesh, then there is Telangana, and then Maharashtra. So we are going to focus only on the southern states for now. And just for additional knowledge, recently you might have heard of an island known as Kachativu. Please forgive me if I am unable to spell it correctly. So it is a point of dispute these days. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has raised this issue. So if we this is basically the island here. This is the Rameshwaram Island, right? And this place over here, this is the Jaffna Peninsula. This is the Jaffna Peninsula, and this whole is our neighborhood country, Sri Lanka. So this point here, the small patch of uninhabited island, is the Kachativu Island. Okay, so in the prelims, how the question might be asked in prelims is that they might give you one or two statements. Kachativu is located to the southwest of Jaffna Peninsula, or it is located to the southwest of Rameshwaram Island. So ideally, if I talk about the location, Kachativu is located to the northeast of Rameshwaram and southwest of the Jaffna Peninsula of Sri Lanka. So we're not going to be focusing on that. Just be aware of what is happening in the current affairs, the domain of current affairs. So right now I'm going to mark two important places. One is obviously Bengaluru, and the other, just for the sake of locating or visualizing the things, this is Mysuru. So I'll be labeling them subsequently following I complete. So Mysuru, some, because I'm going to discuss some historical aspects also, so that will make it even more interesting. Now comes the main part, the water resources or the rivers from which Bengaluru derives its water. So this is one of the most important rivers, that is Kaveri. Then one important, some, because what happens in prelims also, they can several times they have been asking tributaries. I'll give you an example. This is one important river related to this. It was a previous year question related to geography river. It was asked the Gandikota Canyon located on this river Pennar. So I'll be just give me a sec. I'll be marking on this map. Then we have some important rivers. Again, we have here the some of the tributaries of Kaveri. I'll be marking this, and then this is again an important tributary. This is again an important tributary. Then we have this is again an important tributary. Fine. So now I'm going to start labeling the important rivers. So this we have already discussed is the Kaveri river. Fine. So it is slightly gone out of this. Okay. So this basically is the this is the Kaveri river, this part. Then this is one of the right bank tributaries of Kaveri, which is Kabini. Then this is one of the important left bank tributaries, the Shimsha. Then this is one important tributaries. There is another important tributaries apart from Shimsha. There is Hemvati also. Then we have the Arkavati river. It was in the news related to Bengaluru. And this we have discussed the Pennar river in Andhra Pradesh. Then we have the Palar river, and then we have the Punaiya river. So sometimes just additional information, because although we are just talking about the water scarcity in Bengaluru, but the main thing is that when we talk about these three rivers, so sometimes the examiner can arrange these rivers, from north to south or south to north. So you need to be aware. And one important river, if you need more relevance or relate things, we have this is the Tungabhadra, which ultimately is the tributary of Krishna. So this here, the Krishna, it means the Krishna. And again, some important dams which can be asked in the prelims as well. So we have here the Krishnaraj Sagar. Okay, and Krishnaraj Sagar is there, and we have the Mekedatu Dam, Mekedetu or Mekedatu. Now, this is often in news. Why? Because there is a conflict because of the water resources being shared due to this reservoir between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. And one other important dam is the Stanley Reservoir, or the Mettu Dam. Fine. So I'll not burden you with any more of the information. So right now I'll just add another layer so that if we need it, the first layer. So now we come to the important aspect of our discussion. I'll try to make it as simplistic and as lucid as possible. So first of all, I'll give you sort of an historical background behind this, because I like to relate things not only from the geography point of view, the environment point of view, but also from the point of view of history, polity, IR. Okay, so most of Bengaluru's lakes were developed by the Hoysala dynasty. Okay, you will read this in your medieval India NCRTs during the 13th and 14th centuries. Fine. So some stone inscriptions have been found which denote the importance of these things, and not only the stone inscriptions, they also indicate the formation of these lakes as early as the 7th and the 8th centuries. So the rulers, they built irrigation tanks and linked them according to the region's topography, whatever the surroundings, they make the resources feasible. And then why did they did that? That was because the water from elevated lakes could flow to lower ones through channels. And in the 16th century, there was this guy known as Kempegowda one. So he was the governor for the Vijayanagara dynasty, and which it succeeded the Hoysala dynasty. And he started developing or building, augmenting the already built canals or the tanks, the infrastructure which was built during the early Hoysala dynasty. So fast forward to the modern, that is the British area. So obviously the population is increasing, and British were all they were focused upon was the exploitation of the resources and trying to power their way to establish their supremacy. So a lot of water resources, they began to be exploited haphazardly. And of course, the urbanization started at a rapid pace. The industries started getting settled, the industry started getting developed. Okay, and so what happened in that was not only the urbanization, we often talk about the stakeholders. The stakeholders such as the cattle rearers, the fishers, the agricultural laborers. So they, in a way, for example, I'll give you an example of cattle rearing. So sometimes what happens is that there are weeds which grow in the natural ecosystems along with the plants. So cattle grazing, it helped to remove those weeds, and in help it helped to balance the ecosystem. Then fishing was there. So all this because the common person, those stakeholders, relied on these natural resources. So there was always a sort of balance maintained between the fragile ecosystem and the humans or the citizens. But with the coming of the British and subsequent post-independence area, these stakeholders, these cattle rearers, the grazers, the agricultural laborers, the fishermen, they were made devoid of, they were prevented from engaging into these activities. And not only was the livelihood taken away from these people, but in fact the whole ecosystem balance was obliterated. So Bengaluru had over 1,400 water bodies in the 1800s, of which only about 194 remained in 2016. Now that is a staggering figure. Okay, so the agrarian ecosystem that the lakes once supported has also disappeared. It included the sacred groves, the paddy fields. Okay, so that all is more or less gone. Now, just for some stats, Bengaluru has been facing a shortage of 500 million liters of water every day, which is about 1/5 of the city's total demand. Now, that is horrifying. Okay, and like I said earlier, that not only Bengaluru but the adjacent areas of Telangana and Maharashtra are also facing a similar problem. Now, we are going to focus on the main aspect, that is the structure, which is, so I have told you the issue in what is the issue. Okay, and what is the issue. Now we'll focus on the why. We have done the mapping part, the important part for the prelims. So reasons, can any of you just figure out, try to think what is, if you have studied geography, whenever we try to solve a problems, my initiative or my understanding is to not only look at a topic individually or in isolated approach. We have to link it with various aspects. Just remember or think about the various aspects of the syllabus of UPSC. So there is geography, okay, there is economy, there is history, there is polity. Okay, so basically if you have some knowledge of physical geography, if I again just hide this layer and relight this make this layer come alive. So we know that the southern part of our country, it is the not only the peninsula, we know all what the peninsula is, but it is basically consists of the hard Archean granite and basaltic structure. Fine. So what happens is the water, it is very difficult for the water to find spaces to go inside the surface. Okay, so this is made of hard rocks, unlike the northern plains. Okay, northern plains, we are talking about UP, Bihar, Jharkhand. So there also the monsoon, or there has been less rainfall, and there also there has been acute shortage of water. But the groundwater levels or the aquifers, they have not been depleted to such a level, or such a water crisis is not being observed in the northern states of India. Why? Because now, in simple terms, what is groundwater in simple terms? Basically what happens is there are two layers. This layer is an impermeable layer. Okay, impermeable layer, and this is also another impermeable layer, and between those impermeable layer we have porous rocks where the water gets collected. Fine. Now water gets collected, it may seep through during rainfall, then we have surface runoff. So all these aspects are happening, so it seeps into the ground and it accumulates in the form of aquifers of groundwater. So here, after that, what we do is we dig the wells, bore wells, and the hand pumps, we try to get the water out in this form. Okay, now what will happen if the rocks are highly impermeable, like we have in the Deccan region? So they are hard rocks, the water, it will find it very hard to permeate. Okay, so the hard rocks, what happens is, if some structure is like this, some enclosure is made, it consists of hard rocks. So what the water will do, it will just accumulate here whenever there is excess rainfall or excess surface runoff or excess water, and it will form a type of very shallow groundwater level, or it will form a type of tank from which water can be taken out. But in the northern plains, what happens is the rocks are basically sedimentary rocks, which are soft rocks, highly porous and permeable. So the water can seep easily inside, and it helps in recharging the ground, keeping the groundwater level recharged throughout most of the time. Okay, so what happens in this region, in the Deccan Plateau or the peninsular region, we're focusing on the region such as Bengaluru, which consists of hard rocks. So when the rainfall takes place, the reservoirs are quickly filled, and during drought season, due to evaporation, they are also quickly emptied. Whereas in case of the northern plains, where the rocks are soft, they not only take time to make up the aquifer, but also during drought season, the water does not evaporate or get eliminated from the aquifers as quickly as in the hard rocks. Okay, so this is one aspect, important aspect, which we need to keep in mind. I'll just erase this. Okay, so this is the basics. So one, we know the structure, so we are discussing about the major reasons. So the next fragment of discussion, the structure, is the reasons for the shortage. So first point is that the southern India, the southern part of our country, has a very different type of rocks and subsequently different type of aquifers or the groundwater ecosystem. Fine. Then obviously cities or places like Bengaluru, they receive less rainfall because they lie in the rain shadow region. I'm not going to discuss this in detail, but it has a semi-arid region, and so in contrast with the other regions like Mumbai, it receives very less rainfall, and moreover, due to climate change and other anthropogenic factors, the state of Karnataka received rainfall that was 18% below normal. It has been the least since 2015. So that is one another reason. Then again, the general region, major loss of tree cover, build up of population, haphazard urbanization. I think I don't need to explain to you what loss of tree cover. So basically, in simple terms, if I have to explain, if we have this land, okay, so vegetation is growing, the trees are growing. So they hold the soil together, they prevent soil erosion. Moreover, when water, surface runoff, rainfall takes place, it does not simply run away. Some part of the water also seeps inside the ground, thereby replenishing the groundwater and thereby replenishing or recharging the aquifers. Now, what is happening is, with the population boom, okay, so with the population boom, we have concretization. That is, in place of the porous structures, the porous soil, the concrete roads and structures, they are being built to enable the cause of urbanization. So the water which earlier used to seep down and recharge the groundwater, that is not happening anymore. So in simple terms, that is the case. And obviously the population is increasing, so the demand for the water has simply skyrocketed. And obviously climate change, the summers are becoming very harsh, and this April to June, the meteorological department has predicted that these are going to be even more intense, especially in the central part and the southwestern part of our country. So latest data from the CWC, that is the Central Water Commission, also shows that Karnataka reservoirs are currently holding water at only 26% of their full capacity. Okay, then we have demand not only for the population but from industries, the coal and the steel powered plants, agriculture, okay, hydropower sectors. Fine. And due to the concretization, the waste is directly being, there's a flux of waste directly into the lakes is taking place, and that is why the channels, the connection of channels, due to blockage of the waste, earlier what used to happen is the water, the excess water, it used to find its way through channels from one lake to another. So if one lake used to overflow, the other lake would compensate for that overflow by relocating the water in it. But due to concretization, solid waste disposal, these channels have been blocked. So not only drought, in the initial part when I discussed that meme, when heavy rainfall is taking place, although we say that Bengaluru is lying in the semi-arid part of our country, but when even a relatively small amount of rain takes place in that area, flooding occurs, widespread flooding occurs. Okay, some important lakes which have been in news recently related to Bengaluru. Bengaluru is normally known as a catchment area of lakes. So one news you might have heard of Belandur, often in the, so some lakes you should be aware of. Sometimes the UPSC asks which they mention the lake and then they ask which area is it located in. Then there is the Varthur lake, the Bengaluru's second largest lake. Then Kekondrahalli lake. Then we have the Kasavanhalli lakes also. Fine. So these are the reasons for writing an answer. If you just note these points, you remember these points. These are very general points. These are the points which is going to make your answer stand apart from the others. Okay. So now the next part, we have to deal with the water shortage. So what we have discussed, we have discussed the why. Now we have to discuss what can be the potential solutions and the measures, that is the way forward. So basically in any means question, it is the examiner will not only ask you about what the actual issue is, he will also, because as a civil servant, if you are located or you are posted in a semi-arid area and you are facing a water shortage like this, there was a news recently in the newspaper, one IAS officer, he helped a village obtain water resources. It was a very arid areas, water shortage was severe. So potential measures we are going to discuss. Again, in general, we all talk about the bringing together various stakeholders and the common fishermen. We have already talked about the cattle grazers, the traditional methods of rainwater harvesting. Okay, so all these should be encouraged, but this is very general. Okay, I'll discuss it the general parts. So the encroachment should not be allowed. Okay, haphazard urbanization should be prevented. The municipal corporation should take care proper and planned development is taking place. Okay, and then there is one case study which I came across. This will make your answer stand apart because everyone is writing the same answer. Okay, rainwater harvesting by the residents of the city. Recently there was a ban due to this crisis in Bengaluru. Potable water, that is drinkable water, was not allowed to be used for other purposes. Many people I heard were fined for playing Holi in Bengaluru. So these are the case. One case study which might come in very handy to you is one of Jakur Lake. We have discussed lakes like Belandur, Varthur, which have experienced severe shortage of water. So this Jakur Lake, with the help of the organizations, the government authorities, and the citizens and people, this Jakur Lake has been replenished or rejuvenated. So what the citizens have done between 2008 and 2011, the Bangalore or Bengaluru Development Authority desilted, fenced, desilted and revived the lake before handing it over to the Bengaluru's municipal corporation. Okay, so this can be again one point. And then there is a citizen group known as citizen group. We were talking about the rainwater harvesting. So there is a citizen group known as Jal Poshan, which works on lake conservation. So with their efforts, not only this municipal corporation was brought into the picture, they were encouraged to take steps, take measures, but also sewage treatment plants were established to treat the waste in order to prevent it from directly entering to the Jakur Lake. So we had talked, normally what happens is potential solutions, we might say, okay, we are going to write just opposite to what the problem is, but we have to be more specific in order to, we don't have to write stories like we do in the engineering examinations. Then we have already talked about the stakeholders, the fisher folk. Okay, then we can also talk about the artificial floating islands. This is a very novel concept. So if we break up the terms, artificial floating islands, so what is happening is some groups, some government authorities, so what they are doing is on a piece of land, they are growing plants, the vegetation is being grown, so that whatever rainfall is taking place, whatever the runoff is taking place, whatever water is falling to the surface, it seeps down and it helps in recharge of the groundwater level, which we have already discussed the concept earlier. So these are some of the ways in which we can provide a potential solution and way forward. So the point now, how to conclude. Again, conclusion normally in means examination, what we are habitual of writing is that, okay, various stakeholders are involved and all that. So a novel way, each and every individual has his or her own way of writing conclusion. So you should be innovative in such a concept which is dealing especially with the human geography. So we can write like this. I have just come up right now what this conclusion for the answer can be. So we can say the groundwater problem is inextricably, I'm just using a fancy word, no you need for you to learn it or cram it. So it is inextricably linked with the questions of who accessed and managed its lakes over centuries. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to link the conclusion with what we discussed, the Hoysala dynasty. Do you remember? I hope you do. So it is linked inextricably with the lakes that were managed over the century, and in order to provide a solution to the mismanagement, the relationship between citizens and lakes needs to be strengthened over time. So I'm just writing the keywords. You can connect and make it a sentence of 15-20 words depending on the word limit. Don't exceed it. So that is what my purpose was for today. I'll just highlight this layer again. So this map, if you keep in mind some of the concepts, so it will become very easy for you to understand what the current scenario is. Because the drought situation, even Kerala received below normal monsoon this year, okay, and we are witnessing climate change, but all the attributes or all the blame cannot be put on the climate change. Obviously, climate change majority is being caused by the anthropogenic factors, but there are many things, the infrastructural things, which we as humans, as citizens, or the government authorities are not doing. So, with that, I would like to conclude this topic. Till next time, Jai Hind.